And we're live. Hi everyone, it's Ash here from FPL Hints, back with another edition of Fplhintslive, earlier than usual due to real life commitments. As always, I'll preview the game week that's gone. Sorry, not preview, I'll review the game week that's gone and preview the game week ahead. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Let's get straight into the review for game week 13. So yeah, game week 13 was a strange one. I took my first hit of the season and kind of feels like a mixed bag. Okay, I scored 13 points above the average, which was fantastic. But then, there was far more to it than scoring above the average. I took a hit that completely failed because I bought in Foden and I bought in Tomiyasu as my make weight transfer. And I shipped out, who did I ship out? Can't remember now. Who did I sell? I sold Trippier, controversially, and I sold Trossard. And as we know, Trossard somehow got a fantasy return against Man City. So yeah, looking at my back line first of all. So yeah, I had an option of either starting Danny Ward or Gator, and my logic was that I could either double up with 2 Palace defenders or double up with 2 Leicester defenders, or I could have one of each. And I decided, you know what, I want to start Castagna, and maybe it's a risk too far in trusting Danny Ward, even though Danny Ward has become peak Buffon in these past few weeks. And I don't think I've started him. Have I? I'm trying to think now. I don't think I've started. Yeah, I've never started Danny Ward and got any points from him. Come to think of it, he's always been like a sub 1 option for me. So look, Castagna worked out wonderfully somehow, despite just getting an assist and the clean sheet. With others scoring in that match, he got 12 points, which kind of saved my game week in some respects. And it was a difference between having a red arrow and a green arrow. The rest of the back line completely flopped, as you can see, with Gita just getting 2 points. Cancelo, again, disappointingly, also blanking as well. Was hoping that he could get a clean sheet there. And yeah, Tomiyasu, who even though I bought Tomiyasu in, it was more the fact that I wanted like some sort of Arsenal defensive coverage. Obviously, lots have Saliba and Ramsdale, and with the favourable fixtures, I thought I need someone in there. And literally, the only 4.2 defender that was worth getting, even though there's a rotation risk, was Tomiyasu. And at that price point, okay, if he doesn't start, then fair enough. But then I've got him as a rotation option on the bench as well. So, it is what it is. 2 points from him. Gomez, massively disappointing against Forest, picked up the yellow card as well. I don't know what on earth happened to Liverpool on Saturday lunchtime. It was from the match that I watched on the previous Sunday against Man City, when they really put up a fight and maintained that fantastic home record that they've had with Van Dijk, and also just in general being formidable at home despite the troubles they've had. They went to on the road to Forest, bottom of the league, getting thrashed by everyone, and Liverpool can't even score against them. It was just a complete disaster. Forget FPL, forget like Mohamed Salah as an option. It was just really I put my hands up. I didn't watch that match. I listened to it on the radio, but there was just nothing good at all. And look, granted, I get it. Liverpool are weak defensively, and they've had issues just in general this season, and probably it was a mistake for me to get Gomez in on my wild card. But I thought, at 4.5 million, I can bench him or have him as a final option. And this is it. I reluctantly sold Trippier despite his fantastic record of attacking, fantasy returns this season, and it was the only way for me to get Foden in, as you can see on the screen there, who wasn't expecting him to start from the bench, which annoyingly he did. Martinelli against Southampton, just 2 points. And the strange thing was that on my wild card, I actually had Granit Xhaka in as my Arsenal cover, because my plan initially was that I could, and reluctantly, again, it would have gone against EO, downsize Martinelli, get Xhaka in, and with those, extra, what was it, 1.5 or whatever 1.2 million, I would have then had the ability to spread the funds elsewhere. And yeah, in this instance, sadly, it didn't work out by keeping him. But Martinelli's a special player. He's been great this season. Good value for money at a points per million level as well. Foden, I'm hoping that gets starts in the remaining 3 games before the World Cup. I'll be very annoyed if he doesn't. At that price point, he's been great. Let's hope that that benching ensures that he doesn't get any further like benching issues. In fact, just looking at the Champions League result for City, I know they drew against Dortmund. Just want to see Foden's minutes in that match. Having a quick look. So Foden, Grealish, Silva. Was Foden even in the matchday squad? Just having a quick look. So Foden got subbed off after 81 minutes. That's a tough one. And Cancelo thankfully got subbed off after the Haaland as well got subbed off, oddly enough, in the early part of the second half. That's interesting. So you'd assume that Cancelo and Haaland start this weekend. I really hope Foden does as well. Disappointing result for City, and maybe things will change for them with another win in the Premier League. And then coming on to the attack, Captain EO, Captain Haaland. As I predicted, among the Elite 1000, his EO would have been, it was well over 180%. And unfortunately, some did, Captain Salah, and there was a massive disparity in terms of the rank swings that some got. I actually saw I saw a well-known FPL manager who actually captained Salah, and despite captaining Salah, all his other players banged for him, and he got a massive green arrow. So, fair play to him for doing that. But then he'll probably be kicking himself thinking, had he captained Haaland, he probably would have been nearer to 90 points. And then coming on to my other 2 attackers, Mitrovic, from what I saw, from what I heard, I beg your pardon, could have got more attacking returns on Sunday. But look, he's picking up return, even if it's not like a massive haul. At that price point, we'll take it. Kane with his 8 points against Newcastle, very interesting match in North London with the late Sunday afternoon kickoff. Newcastle really went toe-to-toe with Spurs and deserved 3 points. Could Spurs have picked up a draw? Could Kane have got another goal perhaps? But Newcastle deserved that, and fair play to them. But annoyingly, as you can see with my bench, 20 points on the bench, which was a bit of a pain. Like I said, with Ward and Gita, it was a 50-50, but then I decided to spread the risk. And I could have gone the other way. I could have started Gehi instead of Castagna, Ward instead of Gita, and what would have been the points difference there? Just want to work it out now. So what was it? 0 and 8 on the bench, but then I had 12 and 2. So I the fact I went for the split option, I got more of a benefit than if it had been Ward and Gehi. So can't complain. As I mentioned in previous editions, that points on the bench isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just shows you that you've got that depth and you can rely on a sub 1 or a sub 2 if need be in the future. Of course, I can't benefit from these points right now, but I've got that peace of mind, especially with Andreas, that I can potentially start, and I have been starting him in matches as well this season. So yeah, that was a disappointing one, because with Andreas, had I not done any transfer, I would have started him. He was in my team, but then it was that fear of missing out. It was a fear of Foden's price rising once again. I thought, I have to get him in. If I miss out on Foden against Brighton and he bangs, then I've missed out on him altogether for the rest of this first half of the season. And yeah, Billing, who I bought in, as you saw on the previous show, it's a 50-50 between Billing and Almiron, and I picked the wrong player. And yeah, that didn't work out. But with Billing, just glad that he didn't hemorrhage the bench further on the Monday night. Didn't watch the Monday night match either. But look, from my perspective, you get these game weeks, and look, 60 net points, can't complain too much really. And I'm just going to bring up my game week history if I can get to it. Just give me one moment. There we go. The problem that I have is that my rank is kind of like stuck in this horrible vortex from game week 8 to game week 13. I've basically been ranked like 300-ish K, and yeah, back-to-back red arrows didn't help between 8 and 9. Had that rank boost in game week 10, went back down in 11, and then for me, it doesn't feel like I've had back-to-back green arrows because they've been so like minuscule. Like the wild card, as I mentioned last week, I picked all the wrong players, and all the right players who I just missed out on got massive hauls. But then, with hindsight, some of them didn't haul at all, didn't get any returns in game week 13. And then, yeah, game week 13, despite doing a -4, yeah, what was it, 38, 30 to 40k rank rise. I can't complain too much. Annoyed about the points on the bench, but I have to take risks, and that's what I've done. And with Trippier, I've got no doubt that once the unlimited transfers kick in during the World Cup period, I'll almost certainly get him in. Yeah, I bought him at 5.0. I'll probably have to buy him at 5.8 or 5.9, but it is what it is. Just he's been sensational, and it was a panic sell, fear of missing out. But with Foden, I just saw the upside potential that I knew that had he banged against Brighton, then by game week 14, the potential of his EO rising further, it's almost like pointless then catching up for lost points, and it's like he's just a shield player. I feel that in game week 13, he wasn't like a full-on shield player across multiple rank tiers. So yeah, there we have it. It's not been the best of seasons for me so far, but then the rank's been relatively stable. Can't complain massively, but at the same time, I'm in this mindset, and I've said it time and time again, that I have to now take more risks because I like at this stage of the season, the previous 2 seasons, I was top 100k, wasn't taking as many risks, but now I have to. Like in the instance of like selling Trippier, I bought Saliba in, and yeah, looking at my team, I'm fairly content with my team for game week 14. I could very easily not make any transfers, or I could make one transfer. Very unlikely to take another hit back to back, and I was reluctant to even take that hit in game week 13. But I'm fairly content with all things considered. And yeah, I mean, like if I spin it, that's 3 green arrows in the past 4 game weeks. But I know that I look at some of the coveted leagues that I'm in. Some of the managers who've been having fantastic starts to the season, they're way up there, top 100k, top 50k, top 10k, and big respect to them for getting a head start. And like I've said on one of the shows earlier in the season, not many other fantasy personalities will say it, but getting a good start is a head start in FPL. It really is, because then you don't have to take as many risks. You can play it safe. You can basically template your way to a really fantastic rank if you really wanted to, if you've got a good start. But I'm in this place now where, okay, I'm fortunate that I'm not like way down, but at the same time, I can't play excessively boring. Okay, captaincy, Captain EO, my hands are tied on that, and it's worked out for me pretty much all of my captaincies this season. The only times I've had a blank is when was it Haaland against Liverpool and Mohamed Salah against Bournemouth. That's it. That's the only 2 blanks I've had, and I've not lost out because they were highly captained during those game weeks as well. So I'm going to flip over now to the preview for Game Week 14. Just give me one moment. And as always, get your questions in through the YouTube chat, through my DMs, or just tag me on Twitter. So yeah, Game Week 14. I'm also going to do my captaincy poll straight after this as well. I'll share the results. I used to do them as a standalone video, but I kind of feel that they weren't getting the kind of traction that I was hoping for. So I'm just including them in these videos for the time being. Maybe when there isn't a clear-cut Captain EO, I might do a standalone video again. But yeah, I mean, if it is always going to be like Haaland at 180, 190% EO, even though it's a short 3 to 4 minute video, I think people are like, well, we already know that. And some probably don't even care about the EO element of it because they're just not interested. But yeah, I'll come on to the captaincy after this, then the questions. So Game Week 14, Saturday lunchtime kickoff, Leicester against Man City. A few weeks ago, you could have said that on, pass score of a 4-0 or a 5-0 for Man City, but Leicester have been sensational to say the least. I can't read into too much what has changed for Leicester over the past few weeks, except for the fact that Buffon has turned into peak. Danny Ward has turned into peak Buffon. Really, I'm just looking at the Leicester team right now, just to see what is it that is different to this Leicester team from earlier in the season. Like, okay, same back line. Okay, Maddison and Barnes, who were also starting previously. You've got Tielemans, Dewsbury Hall, Daka up top. Is it Sumara? I'm not sure if he was even starting. In fact, let me have a quick look now. Curious. Was he starting matches at the start of the season? Maybe it was a case of all the batterings that they took, they just managed to eventually gel as a team. So Sumare, who wasn't, it's interesting, he wasn't getting starts initially, and even now, he's not even played a full match since Game Week 5. So again, I've not been following Leicester too much. I just know that Danny Ward's been picking up these clean sheets, and Castagna, in particular, I remember during the 2021 season when he scored 2 goals, got 4 assists, and then had a good start to that season, and then I don't know what happened, got injured or whatever happened to him, and then the season after just got the 1 goal. I felt with him there was a lot of potential, and I don't often target fixtures. I'm a form-based FPL manager, but on the wild card, I just wanted to get him in because he was getting fancy returns, albeit he didn't get an attacking return apart from Game Week 8. He kept a clean sheet in 9, 10, 11, and then 12 when I got him in. And then, yeah, luckily in Game Week 13, got an assist and a clean sheet, which was good enough for 12 points. But coming on to Leicester against City, you have to say it's still a City win. Okay, it might be relatively narrow or maybe by a 2-goal margin. Leicester could even score, but yeah, that's a Man City win. Coming on to Bournemouth against Spurs. With Spurs in particular, they really would want to bounce back after the defeat against Newcastle United on Sunday. I believe Spurs and Newcastle, in fact, there's only a 2-point difference there now. And if Newcastle win in fact, even if Spurs draw and Newcastle win, the Newcastle would leapfrog them. As for Bournemouth, the defeat against West Ham, was it expected result? Probably was. I think Solanke also got subbed off around the halfway point. Not sure if he's injured or how bad that is, but yeah, look, that's a Spurs win, even though it will be trickier. We're obviously not going to bat them 9-0, but yeah, that's a Spurs win easily. Coming on to Brentford against Wolves, you've got Wolves who've just struggled for goals this season, even with Diogo Costa in the team, who may not even be 100% fit. Didn't seem like he'd hit the ground running. He's way past his peak as well. Wolves are going to struggle for goals until the Jan transfer window, or when one of their regular strikers get fit once again. Brentford just seemed like a different animal altogether at home. That's a comfortable Brentford win there, no doubt. If there is a goal involved, there's goals, then Tony will have goal involvement. So yeah, narrow win for Brentford. Coming on to Brighton and Chelsea. Brighton, you know, 9th in the league. They've showed that fight against City on Saturday afternoon, but you know, Potter going back to his old club, he'd really want to do like or just show a statement of intent against his old club, but then his ex-players will definitely rise to the challenge as well. I've got no doubt it'll be a feisty affair, but I'll call that a Chelsea win. Coming on to Palace against Southampton. Again, Palace, just like Brentford, they seem to be a different kettle of fish when they're playing at home, and on the road, don't know what happens to them. Southampton, 3 wins in 12, hovering above the relegation zone. Really kept Arsenal busy on Sunday afternoon as well with was it a draw? 1-1 draw, yeah. So I'll call that a Palace win. I just feel that at home there's just an extra X factor with their home fans as well. But yeah, so, Palace win. Coming on to Newcastle against Aston Villa. Aston Villa, who've now got what's his name? I was going to go by his slogan. Oh my goodness, what is his name? I don't want to say what he's known for saying. I've just lost my train of thought there. Hold on. What's his name? Unai Emery. I don't want to like. I've got in my head good. I'll say good evening. I won't say how people mock him for saying it. I don't know why that was stuck in my head. But you know, Unai Emery's at the club. Really shrewd managerial appointment. But with Newcastle at home and the momentum that we have, I'd still call that a Newcastle win. It will be considerably more difficult than it was probably 2 to 3 weeks ago for Newcastle to win. But yeah, that has to be a Newcastle win just because of the momentum and the ability to rise further up in the table. The fact that Newcastle could be third seems quite surreal. I don't think we've been like third or fourth at this stage of the season for like 10 years when Pardew had a good run of games early on. I think for the first 10 games he was unbeaten or something. So with the players that we have, we're more than capable of getting a result there against Villa. Fulham against Everton. I mean, with Everton, they completely struggled for goals this season, and then out of nowhere, they just scored 3 goals against Palace. Completely caught me off guard as well. If DCL remains to be fit, then I've got no doubt that they'll carry on scoring, and if they're scoring, then they're getting results. Fulham, on the other hand, at home, they just seem like amazing. The fact that they've scored 22 goals altogether in the Premier League, just one less than Tottenham, and the same amount as Liverpool, more than Chelsea, more than United. Just Andreas and Mitrovic are absolutely sensational from an FPL perspective and also for Fulham as well. So I'm going to call that a Fulham win, but I've got no doubt that Everton could easily have some goal involvement in that match. Coming on to Liverpool and Leeds in the evening kickoff. Just realised 7:45. Fair enough. So yeah, look, Liverpool at home with that unbeaten home record, you'd expect them to maintain that despite losing to Forest last Saturday. Not sure what's happening with Leeds really. Just obviously they're 3-0 down against Fulham, got the 2 late goals, didn't make a massive difference, but you know, Leeds have now lost 4 games in a row. Prior to that, they had the 2 postponements in September. They drew against Aston Villa, and the start of September, they lost against Brentford. End of August, they drew against Everton, lost against Brighton. And yeah, they had a really good start to the season in fairness when they got a result, a win against Wolves, drew against Southampton, beat Chelsea, and then was it Barnsley randomly in the EFL Cup. So they're in this horrible tailspin. This is, Leeds are for the taking there. Liverpool have to win, and you'd expect a bounce back win, comfortable win, hopefully, for Liverpool and for Mohamed Salah owners. Yeah, by at least a 2-goal margin. Not because Liverpool are significantly better than Leeds in terms of their form, but it's just Leeds have been completely off it since those postponements in September. So yeah, has to be a Liverpool win. And if they don't win, if Salah blanks again, then that's not going to be good from a FPL perspective. And coming on to the Sunday games, Arsenal against Forest. I've got no doubt that Arsenal shouldn't struggle as much against Forest as did Liverpool on the Saturday. Has to be an Arsenal win. The fact that they've got that 2-point advantage against Man City, they really can't let that slip now. And just psychologically going into, well, I was going to say not even second half of the season, but going into that World Cup period, being top of the table, even though it's not the halfway point, just psychologically will put them in a good frame of mind, and they have to win matches against Forest for that to happen. So comfortable Arsenal win there. And then coming on to United against West Ham, you'd have to say it's a United win, but we know the history between United and West Ham, and anything could happen. West Ham could potentially win that match. You've got Moyes going back to his old club again, of course. But then I look at United's recent results as well. In fairness, they had that bashing against Man City, the 6-3 loss back in, it was beginning of October. But since then, across all competitions, that's 4 wins and 2 draws. So they've had a good run of games. Of course, they had that horrible start to the season when Brentford even battered them 4-0. Brighton beat them at home, at Old Trafford. And yeah, they had other strange results. Ten Hag turned it around. In some ways, the 6-3 against Man City seems to be an anomaly. And you really can't see United losing against West Ham. I've got no doubt it'll be an entertaining match, but I'm calling that a United win. So there you have it. That's my preview of the games for game week 14. And I'm just going to go to my captaincy poll now. Just give me one moment. Just want to make sure it works. Might need to zoom in, but let's give it a minute. The Twitter, there we go, Circle of Death. Great, so just zoom out a little bit. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't even worth me asking, just for the fact that people don't seem to be voting in the poll as they were at the start of the season. I was getting like well over 4,000 people voting, but when it is so obvious, people just kind of ignore it. But like I said, for the sake of consistency, even if I'm not making the captaincy video, I like doing the poll, even though if I didn't do the poll, I pretty much know who the Captain Obvious pick is. But for the benefit of my followers and even just for my own validation, I like to know what the difference is in the margin. And we're seeing this consistent pattern once again that Haaland against everyone else, it's like by a margin of 8 to 10, 9 to 10. In this case, 8.6 out of 10 are backing Haaland for the captaincy, and fair play. And on that alone, you can easily say among the elite 1,000, his EO will once again exceed 180% plus. And as for the top 10K, I kind of feel they're harder to predict, but no doubt among them, it will be at least 170, 175%. I say they're harder to predict because I feel that the top 10K, they seem to take significantly more risks than the elite 1,000. That's a matter of fact. That's something that anyone can just look at, even on captaincy as well. Let's just say Haaland is the EO captain and that percentage of 86% are backing him. I guarantee that for the top 10K, if they just did this poll, or if you look at livefpl.net's captaincy percentage, some of the riskier picks will be more prominent among the top 10k. And I wouldn't say it's like a lot harder, but almost always the EO captain has the higher percentage among the elite 1000 than in the top 10k. It's just the way it is because they simply take more risks. So yeah, with over 1000 votes cast, which that's more than sufficient, Haaland is the standout captain. And I'm looking at like just captaincy options. If we didn't take EO into consideration, Arsenal have that generous fixture against Forest, but then who would he captain? Would he captain Martinelli? Would he captain Jesus? I just doesn't feel right to captain either of them. Obviously, Saka's got the good run of form. Mohamed Salah against Leeds seems tantalising, but then he's just not got good enough form to justify it, in my opinion. It really comes out. Obviously, Kane against Bournemouth, he's got a good record against them, and he's in a good vein of form himself. Mitrovic against Everton as a punt captaincy, some might make a case for it, but it always comes back to Haaland because Haaland has a quote unquote reasonable fixture, even though it's Leicester at their home ground. But yeah, he will be the standout captaincy. There's no doubt about it. And I just can't make a case. If Salah had shown some sort of consistent form since the start of the season, you could say, okay, maybe it'll be a split captaincy, but it won't. We've not had a split captaincy for quite a long time. And just looking at some numbers here, we've probably not had a split captaincy since game week 5 when Salah got 10 points against Newcastle and Haaland, he got that hat-trick against Nottingham Forest. And then ever since then, there was the shift and the rise of Haaland as the perma captain. And it's going to remain that way until he gets injured or he hits a bad patch, or if Mohamed Salah rediscovers his form again. But you can safely say that with City's remaining fixtures, Leicester away, EO captain, Fulham home, EO captain, Brentford at home, EO captain, there's no one else to captain. And the risk is that you've got nothing to lose and you want to go against Haaland, that's completely fine. But as we saw, even with a generous fixture against Forest, Salah blanked, Haaland hauled, and anyone who went Salah, with a few exceptions, they lost out, unfortunately. So that's something that is worth factoring in as well. So there we have it. That's the captaincy poll, as you've probably seen on my timeline. And I'm going to switch now, and we'll get some questions. I've got a few that have come in through the DM. I can see that a few have come in through the YouTube stream as well. Just give me a moment. And I'm doing this stream, as I've mentioned, a few days before when I'd normally do it. I really hope there aren't any red flags or yellow flags or orange flags that will wreck the stream. But yeah, I wasn't going to even do one because I can't do one on Friday. But I thought I had some free time and might as well get one done for the sake of it. So don't you think that Konate will start over Gomez against Leeds? PA probably could. Gomez was a risky pick in terms of like an FPL asset. I just for 4.5 million, I'll take a punt on him. But yeah, he's at risk, absolutely. And I think it'll be telling to see what happens with Liverpool and the Champions League match, but it's worth keeping that in mind. And you mentioned Foden played a full match. I don't think he did. I think he got subbed off after 80 minutes, but the fact he even played that many minutes almost makes him a rotation risk. But then surely, Pep would realise that us FPL managers want his points, but no. Yeah, I think Foden is a rotation risk, or he'll probably get managed minutes against Leicester. Who knows? Doherty or Saliba, who will get more points in the game weeks ahead? Well, Saliba is obviously on 4 yellow cards. If he picks up another one and he's suspended, I think with Doherty, he's got the away fixture and he's at home at Leeds, but then Liverpool in 15. We saw that Doherty didn't start against Newcastle on Sunday, so he could have management, even if it's Bournemouth away and Leeds at home. I think he could easily get managed minutes. And you look at Saliba's fixtures: Forest at home, Wolves away, obviously Chelsea away in 15. To answer that question, I think Saliba, unless he picks up a yellow, should outscore Doherty and probably will get more minutes as well during that time. So coming on to some questions in my DM. So this is an interesting one. What are your thoughts of Haaland having a potential knock, and who are the best captaincy options if he's confirmed out? So yeah, like I've said, I didn't watch the Champions League match and didn't realise he went off with a knock. And to answer that question, I think we covered some of those captaincy options, such as Kane against Bournemouth, definitely an option there. And then further down the line, you could consider Mitrovic and even one of those Arsenal players. I'd say if I had Saka, I'd probably consider captaining him as well. So yeah, I'll keep an eye out on the Haaland flag situation, but yeah, that would be a bit of a disappointment if he did go out due to him having a knock and might get managed minutes against Leicester. Who knows? So coming on to some other questions. With only 3 game weeks left to go before unlimited transfers, what kind of situations would you advocate taking a hit in before the World Cup? Yeah, for me, I can't justify taking any more hits at all before the World Cup. I kind of feel in my case, did a very late wild card in 12, took a hit in 13 when I probably shouldn't have. I kind of feel that I'm stuck with my team now until the World Cup. So, even unless you've got literally no bench players, then fair enough, you might need to take a hit. But I kind of feel that a hit is a luxury now. And we can see that in certain rank tiers, the points differences are so marginal that taking a hit almost automatically might guarantee a red arrow if everyone's got similar scores. And in my case, I benched a lot of players I benched a lot of points in game week 13, and despite that, I was lucky that and my hit failed, but I was lucky that I had players who were able to literally by 1 to 2 fancy returns, which was sufficient in getting a green arrow. So you're basically risking getting a red arrow unless you absolutely need to take a hit. What kind of match would Salah have to play against Leeds for you to keep him for the last 2 game weeks? Well, he'd have to score. He'd have to get something in that match. If he blanks against Leeds, who've just been not that great at all since early September, then that's a serious issue. I got kind of a bit annoyed that I kept him, and it was probably that Forest game that twisted my arm in some ways, and also the West Ham game. I could have easily have switched out Salah for De Bruyne on my wild card. And Salah's EO was so minuscule, it wouldn't have mattered. But the problem I would then have is I've now got Foden, got Cancelo, Haaland. I can't get De Bruyne in unless I sell Foden or Cancelo. So yeah, look, if Salah blanks against Leeds, I'd really consider selling him. I really would. But then the question is, who would I replace him with? And it might be that I get like a I'd say budget player, but I'm trying to think, who could I upgrade? And I'm just having a quick look at Salah's fixture after Leeds, just to remind myself. Tottenham away, Southampton at home. Yeah, let's just hope he doesn't blank. It doesn't give us that headache. But there aren't really many other like-for-like options, unless, like I've mentioned, you've only got 2 City players. You haven't got De Bruyne. Salah to De Bruyne seems like an option. Would you start Ben Mee at home to Wolves or Andreas at home to Everton this game week? Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Brentford, for clean sheets, it's been quite mixed for them. But then against Wolves, they've just struggled for goals. Annoyingly, they had to score against Palace when I had two Palace clean sheets up for grabs in blank game week 12. With it's one of those things where it just doesn't, even though it's a cheap budget attacker in the form of Andreas, it doesn't feel right benching like an attack orientated player. So I'm kind of leaning in that instance. I'm hoping to start Andreas in game week 14, and I don't even call it 50-50. I think it's more, I would favour starting Andreas in that option, but me, he'd have to obviously be your sub one then, and yeah, it's not even a reluctant one. It's Andreas, but then obviously I get that me could easily get a clean sheet against Wolves. For someone wanting to learn more about FPL and its game mechanics, what would you recommend studying during the World Cup break? That's a good question. I would say this, that use the World Cup break to just completely switch off from FPL. I really recommend that a lot. I kind of feel that FPL managers overthink the game too much. And when we do overthink the game too much, we make decisions which then with hindsight seem erratic. And you get this like saying from FPL managers, right decision, wrong outcome. And then how many times are you going to make the right decision and wrong outcome? Why can't we make wrong outcomes or like minimal thought processes and right outcomes in FPL? And yeah, look, there are books that people have written about like the psychology of FPL and how you should prepare yourself. My advice would be switch off from FPL, enjoy the World Cup. Really, don't overthink it. I'm not sure how high you're ranked in FPL at the moment. You don't mention that, but just don't overthink FPL. That's just for anyone, really. I have a saying that the less you think about FPL, the less you think about your decision making, then hopefully the happier you'll be, so that you can focus on the more important things in life. It's just a game after all. And I kind of feel that we often just get stuck in a rut. And it's like, I'm so glad with captaincy, for instance. It's something that I used to think about so much, and I'd get it wrong so horribly. I'd captain like a random player because I had a gut instinct, because I was told by the FPL experts, play your own way. Doesn't matter how everyone else plays, just play your own way. But then playing your own way doesn't necessarily generate the correct results. There is a method to the madness as well, and that's why I advocate the Captain EO approach. And the reality is you can't control the game. Play the game the way it should be played. Don't let the game play you. And it basically means that, again, I talked about not overthinking things, but I'm just trying to just contextualize stuff here, that you've got to almost develop your own philosophy and your own strategy to remain consistent. I feel that helps as well. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you're asking me that question, you're top 50k, I'm telling you now, you can template your way to a top 20, top 10k rank easily. If you're ranked 8.9 million and you don't know what you're doing, I could easily say to you, just experiment between now and the end of the season, because the reality is that you're not going to finish like mega high if you're ranked way down in the low millions. And it's really about managing expectations as well, that what is it that you ultimately want from the game? I've been very clear that I aim for a top 10k rank, even though it's hard to achieve, even though it, some will say it's just not viable because of the number of managers that join and become addicts every year. But that's my aim. And I'm not playing FPL to win the game. I'm playing to do well in it and finishing in the top 10k. That's my aim. Whereas other managers who are playing it just to win the game, they'll take considerably more risks and they'll gamble more, and more often than not, they'll fail. Whereas if you're risk averse, if you take a gradual approach, take the boring approach, as the Elite 1000 do, as I've demonstrated time and time again, that that generates its own results, and there is a method to that as well. So switch off during the World Cup, enjoy the matches, and maybe in a moment of not thinking about FPL, you might then begin thinking about it. But I really do say that on a game weekly basis, don't overthink too much. Don't overthink captaincy, and trust the players as well. And at the same time, yeah, you can't. No one. I know there's this debate within the FPL community about the top experts, personalities who share their teams. Some of them are offended that people copy their teams. Well, what do you expect? If people, if you're putting your team out there, people will copy it. They're your followers, and treat that as a compliment that they're copying you. I used to share my team for 10 years, and I stopped because for me it just became burdensome, and I wanted to reclaim that part of my FPL identity back. But I didn't want to make it public. I wanted it personalized and privatized, which obviously I still share my team after the deadline. But once you share your team before the deadline, anyone's going to copy you. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It doesn't matter how many YouTube stream viewers that you have. But the reality is this: a lot of those people who generate those YouTube clicks for you, they're there to look at your team. They're there to copy your team, and you're making money out of it. So don't complain about people doing that. So look, it's a two-way street. But you don't have to copy people's teams. Just develop your own strategy. Look at the methods that work. Look at the way the elite managers play. You will identify a pattern, and that's really it. Once you know what that pattern is and the method, you can emulate that. And for me, like I've said, if I was playing the game the way the experts tell me, play the game the way you want to play it, I'd be captaining random defenders. I'd be bringing in random differentials. I'd probably not even captain EO. That's how I'd play, but I'd fail at the game. I don't want to fail at the game. I want to do well in the game. And in order to do well in the game, like I've said, there are certain tactics you need to adopt, and that's a reality. But it's not for me to tell you how to play. It's for me to say that there is a way you can play the game and do well in it. And it might be boring, but it will generate results. But then, there's also ways to play FPL in a very risky way, and that can generate results. But then the risk v reward element there, the thresholds are completely different and might be more fun. But you could be a prince to pauper on a back-to-back basis. Just depends what you want from the game and what your expectations are. So question, overall rank is 1.2 million. Can I still finish at 5k OR? Well, it's very unlikely, I'm sorry to say. It really is. I've said it earlier on in the stream that a head start, a good start is a head start in FPL. It really is. So at 1.2 million between top 5k, I'm guessing there's at least 100 points difference there. And what you're looking for, essentially, is some sort of sonic boom, first of all, that will shoot you up the rankings. If you can get a sonic boom that will shoot you up the rankings, then maybe you're in contention for a top 100k rank. And the problem is that you need to basically be lucky every week. And this is it. You're going to have to take more risks. And you've got to hope that your riskier picks will pay off against the safer picks. But the reality is, if your riskier picks fail and the safer picks work, then the gulf between you at 1.2 million and the top 5k is going to get bigger. But that's all that you can do. If you play it safe now at 1.2 million, completely safe, you don't take any risks, then yeah, the gap won't widen, but you're going to struggle to make significant traction. So what you have to do in that instance is take calculated risks, more so than you would if you were top 5k or top 10k, and hope for the best. But also you need to hope that when you get a green arrow, it's a solid dark green arrow. But then at the same time, be very mindful of gambling again the week after. Let's say you cut your rank from 1.2 million to 500k in 1 week, which is possible and it has happened. And you're now hoping, right, I want to go 500k to 250k. Are you going to take considerably more risks the week after? Or are you going to say, actually, I'm going to stabilize my rank and then try again? So that's something that you need to factor in ultimately. But yeah, I want to manage your expectations and say it's almost impossible to finish in the top 5k right now if you're 1.2 million, because there are more FPL addicts who are more, making informed decisions, who've had good starts to the season, and they're going to play it safe. And almost like you could say that there are certain rank tiers that are blocking off now. So, like I said, I'm 333k. I think for me to get inside the top 100k is still achievable. But then I think the gap between me and top 10k right now is about 50 points, which it's still bridgeable at this stage of the season. But I know that I need to get, like I've described it, a sonic boom of a game week to shoot me up the rankings for me to have any. And I'm kind of annoyed because the wild card in blank game week 12, that could have been my sonic boom. Game week 13, if I didn't make any transfers, that would have been a sonic boom for me as well. So you need one of those big game weeks. But the question is taking the calculated risks that are significant enough to prevent you from having a red arrow, because we're at a stage now where a calculated risk could be a super dark green arrow or a super dark red arrow. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts, but it's risk v reward as well. Trying Mohamed Salah captaincy for the last 3 game weeks. Oh dear, the rank has gone down from 500k to 1.2 million. And look, that's why I advocate the Captain EO approach, because there might be an upswing captaincy option, but if that captaincy fails and the go to Captain Obvious bangs, then that's going to happen. I'm sorry to hear that. I still think you can recover that ground. Like in my instance, I've had some small red arrows. Could have been far more worse, but you can still turn it around. And look, you need to take risks if you're in that rank right now. And should you constantly do Captain EO? No. Maybe you want to take another risk if as had been reported earlier on in the stream that Haaland has picked up a knock. Let's say he's yellow flagged or orange flagged on Friday, then so be it. Take the risk and captain Mohamed Salah or someone else in game week 14. Maybe it is worth the risk. It's coming on to another question through my DM. Just give me one moment. I've got Danny Ward and Iverson as my goalkeepers. I want to get another goalkeeper. Should I take a -4 to sell Danny Ward against Man City? No, definitely not. Okay, he might end up with just 1 or 2 points or even 0 points against Man City, but it's not worth taking a -4 just for that one fixture. I know that there was, at the start of the season when he was getting like 0 points, 1 point, some people were desperate to ship him out, which they did. But if you've got no other options, and I'm guessing that, it's not guessing, but like it feels like doing a -4 for a goalkeeper. A goalkeeper move seems like a luxury move. To do a -4, yeah, it's more than a luxury move. I would highly argue against it. Just doesn't seem right. Thoughts on moving Martinelli for Almiron? Nah, I couldn't. Like, Martinelli against Nottingham Forest at the Emirates. And I know that Almiron has been in sensational form. In fact, I just want to bring up this table I show from time to time, which is the points per million table. So just give me one moment. Where's it gone? So points per million, I mentioned it on my stream 2 weeks or 3 weeks back. His points per million was absolutely sensational. So if I can just bring that up here. So on a value by season across all players, the budget goalkeepers tend to be relatively high up. There he is. Look at that, Almiron. You got Henderson at 12.8, and you got Raya, who's got 11.5. Trippier doing quite well at 11.4, but Almiron at 12.4, sensational. He's really, showing you're getting your bang for your buck there. And then Castagna, 11.3, who I was lucky to have. Sarr, like I said, mentioned budget goalkeepers tend to do well as they're lower priced, and if they're getting fancy returns, they'll be up there. And you've got Andreas, 10.9, got Xhaka, Alisson, bit of a surprise to see him there. Pope, Shah, a lot of the Newcastle players, that's good to see. Got Ben White, 10.4, Saliba at 10.2. I think Saliba was a lot higher at the start of the season, but with the price rises and not getting as many fancy returns, that's dropped off. And you got Danny Ward there, surprisingly at 9.8. So I know that Almiron offers exceptional value, especially for Newcastle on the flank. He's just been amazing, and just looking at his attacking returns as well for the season, from game week 9 to game week 13, obviously had the blank against United, just can't stop scoring. So I would say that, don't sell Martinelli for him. But like in my case, if I had like some funds available and I could switch out Billing for Almiron, I'd do it definitely. But not for Martinelli. It just doesn't seem right. Is it time to bring a Man United asset in? The question is, who would you bring in? That's what I'd like to ask, because at the start of the season, you could say, Rashford. Okay, after the Brentford game, he became the go-to pick, and then he kind of went off the boil. I think United, they've got West Ham at home, Aston Villa away, Fulham away. Just trying to think who stands out for United, really. It's a tough one. There's not anyone from United that really sticks out who's consistently done well this season. If I look at value by form, I think some people would say, oh, how about Shaw or Dalot, perhaps? Shaw's what, 4.7 million? In fact, let me just get the United, sorry, let me just switch this. I'll show it on screen here. So value by form, Man United. Sorry, wrong one there. Value by form. Shaw's up there, 4.7 million. He's got, if I'm not mistaken, that's 3 attacking returns in his last 3. Yeah, Casemiro at 4.9 million not an option for me. De Gea, nah, just doesn't seem right. And then you got Dallo, who had the 2 clean sheets in the past 3 games. Yeah, you got Fred, Varane. There's not really anyone. Yeah, not going to get Martinez. Anthony's kind of gone off. Fernandez, not an option. Ronaldo just killed him last season, and it's not been the same, even though Ronaldo's not playing anymore. If you literally have no one else from other teams to consider, maybe sure, maybe, but like, against West Ham at home, West Ham could easily score against them. Clean sheet at Villa, probably, or probably not. Fulham away, you could make a case that United will concede in all of those 3 games between now and the World Cup. So, is it really worth it? I'm not going to justify it. I can't make a case for any of those United players. Like Rashford, if he was in form, perhaps, maybe. Anthony, if he was in form, perhaps. But I just can't justify it, really. If a 10% ownership player returns 10 points, how much rank will you get from that player? Well, I think nowadays, there's pretty much a differential. You would get a significant rank rise. But then conversely, if you don't have, like in my case, I don't have Kieran Trippier right now, who seems to be like 80 to 90% owned across a lot of rank tiers. If he bangs and my equivalent player doesn't, then I'm going to fall massively down in the rankings. So as tempting as it might be to look for a differential, which you probably might want to for the sake of getting a rank rise, just bear in mind that do you have the key template players for each of the positions? And if you do, then you can look for that 10% or less owned player. And in my case, like I showed at the start of the stream, in terms of like differentials, and I call them like accidental differentials. Okay, Gita, he's 3% owned. Didn't realize it was that low. Tomiyasu is less than 1% owned. Obviously, Cancelo has a very high ownership. Gomez has 3% ownership. Andreas, Martinelli, Salah, all relatively high. I say Salah, actually, in some ranked tiers is still relatively low. And then coming on to Haaland, Mitrovic, and Kane, they're all relatively high. So in my team, and Gahey, if I start in 3.6%, Billing 1.4%, and Castagna still less than 5% overall. So interestingly, my defensive options are almost like differentials. And if they bang, as some of them did, well, only one of them, Castagna, did in game week 14, then it can work out. But it almost seems like my attack, they are quite template. But as I've discussed before, you'd also have to look at the combinations. So, I've got Martinelli, Foden, Salah, who've got a high EO in certain ranked tiers. But then if you look in the top 500k, how many people have them? It will be considerably less as a combination. Also with Haaland, Mitrovic, and Kane. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Haaland, Mitrovic, and Kane as a combined ownership in my ranked tier. Just a quick look right now. I won't show it on the screen, but 3 to 400k. Just do it on a separate screen that you can't see it on. So in my ranked tier of 3 to 400k, that's not Kane, that's Brian. Oh, got this wrong. What's going on here? Sorry. Okay, so Haaland has an ownership of 99%. Kane has 31%. Mitrovic has 43%. So that seems relatively high. But if I combine them on livefpl.net, only 8% have that combination. And if you remember at the start of the stream, I showed you that I have all three of those players, and all three of those players scored for me in game week 13, and that also had a contribution to getting a green arrow in some respects, considering that the whole defense except for Castagna got me something. So we've got to look at that combination as well. Just I didn't realize it was that low. Kane, Mitrovic, and Haaland with an 8% combined EO in my ranked tier. And just curiously, if I just change that, this might not work, but among the Elite 1000, it's 11.5%, and top 10k, 16%. Interesting. So yeah, it just goes to show that you've got to look at those combined ownerships as well. And again, I did say don't overthink FPL, but at the same time, you can have a template team, but do appreciate the fact that some people will say, oh, it's a template team, it's not going to get you anywhere. But as I've just demonstrated, players who seem template on paper as a combined ownership could be differentials. So that's something that's definitely worth looking for as well. And of course, we don't know what the true effective ownerships are across ranked tiers until after the deadline. The only indicator that we have is what the effective ownership was after the last deadline. But obviously, like in this case, Mitrovic, Kane have scored. Haaland got a brace last time out. So that 8% combined ownership, I've got no doubt it's going to probably double or more in game week 14. So that's something else that's worth factoring in as well. I do have a couple more questions in the DMs, but I'm going to wrap it up for tonight because I've just got some other stuff to do. But yeah, look, don't overthink FPL and just have, reflect and think, why do you play this game? And I'm pretty sure that once you're able to reflect on why you play this game, that you'll then have an idea on what you want to achieve. And no doubt you'll adopt the steps, the tactics, and the strategies that will get you to that rank tier that you want. One thing I can't help you with at all, I've got no background on this, and it's more luck than anything else. There's no FPL influencer, expert, or personality that can show you how to win FPL. Simply impossible. Can I give you the tools and the tips and the hints on how to finish in the top 50k, top 20k, top 10k? Yes, I can. But no one is going to tell you how to win FPL because there's just too much luck involved ultimately for that. And even, like getting a top 100k, nowadays, you could argue that some of the skill element isn't as important. I believe that in FPL, you really have to make your own luck. You really do. And once you make your own luck, that will help you to some degree. The skill element, I question, how much of it is a game of skill. You don't physically control those players. You can't tell them to, bang in a hat trick every week. So, make your own luck, manage your expectations, know what you want from the game, and ultimately remember, there's more to life than FPL. So on that note, may your arrows be green, may your mind be serene. And before I go, sorry, left it too late, but I am going to show this as well because I always forget, and it's something that I need help in beating the algorithm. As always, if you can like, comment, share, or subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Please. And that's it. All the best. Have a fantastic game week 14. Back to normal service in game week 15 for me. Take care and all the best. Thank you. Bye.